Hey YouTube! In today's video, I wanted to explore the recent development around Kokomi's ever-increasing play rate in the Abyss. She is considered the worst character in the game, yet she's becoming one of the most popular characters to play when tackling the most difficult content in the game, having a play rate of just over 70%. What does this number really mean? Is it trustworthy? Why is it going up? This video is not an attack on those who hate Kokomi, neither is it a defense of those who play her. It's a re-examination of why, even though she's considered bad, people still play her for their 36-star Abyss runs. Let me know if you enjoy this new video format in the comment section below. I hope you enjoy the video. Hey, post-editing Xenar here. This video turned out way longer than it was supposed to. I never make videos this long. So, grab some popcorn or listen to it as a podcast. If you enjoy the video, leave a like. The most intriguing phenomena surrounding Kokomi's resurgence in the Abyss is the relationship between her play rate and ownership rate. Despite having an exceptionally low ownership rate, she has a disproportionately high play rate. In other words, not a lot of people have her, but if you do, you play her. This is actually not normal. You might think that having a low ownership rate inflates play rate. The logic being, if you rolled for a character like Kokomi, a critless healer, obviously you'd play her all the time. And with a small subset of people always playing the same character, it inaccurately represents how popular she is, thus inflating the play rate, creating an inaccurate representation of her popularity. This idea isn't wrong, but it is short-sighted. It's an example of an idea that sounds like it explains the situation around her increase in popularity, but it falls apart as soon as you compare it to other characters in the same situation. Yoimiya is a character who has an even lower ownership rate than Kokomi, so that must mean the people who rolled for a character like Yoimiya, a single target Hu Tao discount, must play her, and her play rate is also inflated. Wrong. Zhao scales with crit rate, free-to-play friendly, insane AoE, top-tier DPS. He also has a low ownership rate, but come on, if you own a character like Zhao, you definitely play him. He's insane. Wrong again. Klee, an old unit, also has a low ownership rate. Not the greatest example, but another one nonetheless. Nobody has her, nobody plays her. All of these characters have low ownership rates. Not a lot of people have them, and they don't play them. Kokomi is not the rule. She's an exception to it. Not a lot of people have her, and they play her. So, low ownership might not be the primary reason of her increasing play rate. There are other factors at play here. Perhaps it's because Spiral Abyss is currently tailor-made for healers, with Rift Hounds dealing corrosion damage, and enemies being incredibly capable of killing you, so you need that kind of survivability. Maybe, if the Abyss wasn't a massive DPS check in every patch, it only gets greater. And according to Reddit and Twitter, Kokomi doesn't offer any damage. She can't crit. Characters like Bennett, Diona, Jean, and Barbara increase your overall team DPS more than Kokomi ever could. So you would still use them against the wolves because you need as much DPS as possible, and their healing is sufficient, so Kokomi just won't cut it. Rift Hounds have way too much HP to be bringing in a healer that takes away time from your main DPS while dealing no damage. So enemies can't be the primary reason either, and yet her play rate is really high. She can't crit. She clearly sucks. Right? Kokomi was the laughingstock of the Genshin community, and in a lot of ways still is considered the worst character to ever be released. No damage, no crit rate, no energy, just another healer in the wrong game, far away from home. She takes 10 seconds to heal your full team while dealing no damage while she's at it. So not only is she preventing your main DPS from dealing damage, she's also taking time to deal no damage. She's the exact opposite of what makes a good healer. The most iconic top-tier healers either don't take any time to heal, or heal while also providing some other benefit, like a shield or an attack buff. She doesn't have good energy regen, despite her DPS phase relying on energy, and she also can't crit. Imagine that. Critting is the stone pillar that Genshin DPS was built upon. Crit rate and crit damage is how you kill your enemies. You want a 1-to-2 ratio for optimal damage over time. It's well documented. Kokomi challenges this notion that has been burned into our brains. A character must be able to crit to be useful, especially when rewards are locked behind DPS checks. Her talent that decreases her crit by 100% is called Flawless Strategy. No, it's not. It's certainly strategically flawed. It wouldn't be unreasonable to consider Kokomi to be the most unplayable character ever released. Until now. This massive resurgence of Kokomi players seems to be due to the release of the Ocean-Hued Clam set in patch 2.3, which allows her to deal 30,000 AoE damage every 3.5 seconds. Before Ocean-Hued Clam, she was in a rough spot. Few people liked her. But after, she's starting to become a next-level unit, chilling with some of the best. For these reasons, she provides AoE Hydro Application, which is the #1 supporting element in the game, enabling Vaporize, Electrocharge, and Freeze, which are the 3 best reactions in the game, tanks through all damage by needlessly excessive healing, has resistance to interruption, has consistently high, fast, off-field healing, making your on-field character several times more tanky, and with her signature set, deals a lot of damage, which solves the problem of her decreasing your team's overall DPS while healing. It's possible that when people heard Ocean-Hued Clam would give 30,000 damage every 3.5 seconds, they didn't understand how much damage that was, because they had no context around it. My Staff of Homo Hu Tao does 65,000 every 15 seconds. My C3 Mona with a level 11 burst Skyward Atlas 2k attack does 40,000 every 15 seconds. And Kokomi is dealing 30,000 every 3.5 seconds. How many times is 3.5 going to 15? Now, these comparisons aren't one-to-one, but there is a lesson in here. It took many weeks for players to realize Kokomi's burst is Hu Tao's elemental skill, and Kokomi's signature set is her burst. For 3 weeks after her release, Kokomi was down a burst compared to other characters, because she used her burst to enter a state where she could deal any damage. And then they gave her burst level damage through a signature set on a 3-second cooldown. She can proc a max bubble 3 times throughout her burst duration, giving 90,000 damage, which is in line with standard burst damage. Keep in mind, this doesn't include how she's already doing 6k damage per auto while her jellyfish is also doing 6k per second. By all accounts, Ocean-Hued Clam is probably the strongest DPS set MiHoYo has released since Blizzard Strayer. But I don't buy it. I think Ocean-Hued might have been the catalyst for her resurgence, but I believe there is something more hidden going on here. Here's the problem. You tell me the solution. Characters like Yoimiya and Zhao both do way more damage than Kokomi. It's not even close. Zhao's AoE is insane, top tier. Yoimiya's damage is high, but single target. But this hasn't been an issue for the recent Abyss rotations because they're all bosses, so she's perfectly playable now too. All of this is great, and with the ever-increasing DPS requirements of the Abyss, you need to play high-potential DPS characters like Yoimiya and Zhao. Unfortunately, the rate at which the Spiral Abyss DPS requirements are increasing is faster than the rate you can improve your artifacts. Your Zhao or Yoimiya are doing as much damage as they possibly can with a reasonable amount of luck in artifact rolls. Reasonably, you can't get any better artifacts. That resin would be better spent on a new character, and once Yoimiya can't deal enough damage, you bench her. The only thing these characters offer is damage, and you're not doing enough of it. We have reached a point in Genshin that only offering damage isn't good enough anymore. Yoimiya and Zhao don't offer enough damage for that to be the only thing they offer. New characters need supportive capabilities to supplement any lack of damage they bring, or be incredibly niche to justify their overwhelming amount of damage. From another perspective, if you have a poorly built Yoimiya or Zhao, you have a useless character, because you're not capitalizing on their specialty. Speaking of low damage, if you are a non-day one free-to-play player, you can't 36-star the Abyss. You don't have enough damage. The idea of investing into a healer to survive is blasphemous, because you need more damage. Even though you know every time you reach that new milestone, the requirement won't be there anymore, creating a cycle of always needing more damage. What's the solution? I have come up with two solutions to the permanently increasing DPS paradox. The first solution is to get the best DPS. Become a meta slave. Ayaka, Ganyu, Hu Tao. You don't need a DPS character who has supportive capabilities or is niche if they're the best. These characters have more than enough DPS to steamroll all the content with their frequent access to reactions. Coincidentally, the best DPS characters also have great supportive capabilities, but let's not talk about MiHoYo's questionable balancing. The second solution is to get a character that doesn't deal any damage. Now that's interesting. A paradoxical situation requires a paradoxical solution. How is getting a character that deals no damage a solution to a problem that requires unlimited damage? As we all know, Kokomi doesn't come with any damage. You should have no expectation of it. None! And yet she's still worth a lot, because her value has never come from it. She has proven herself to be very helpful. She can fit on 4 different elemental teams: freeze comps, reverse vape comps, double electro comps, and whatever the hell Sukokoman is. She's not the best option in any of these team comps, and that's exactly what a tier list would tell you, or a review video. Mona's better in Morgana, Child's better in International and Electrocharge. Sukokoman is just stupid spam reactions. It's not worth getting a character that's not the best at anything. A reviewer and a tier list maker have an obligation to tell you this, but when it comes down to whom the common player is going to choose on their team, versatile characters are first on the list. This kind of versatility is rated very poorly on tier lists, but the common Genshin player rates it very highly. Everyone knows Ito and Shenhe are strong characters, but because they're niche, players dislike them for it. When Kokomi first released, we compared her to characters like Jean, Diona, Barbara. Understandably so, she heals. But as time went on, many players have realized these are not accurate comparisons for Kokomi, and if you don't have her, this might be difficult to understand. Kokomi is much more similar to the community's idealized version of what Zhongli was supposed to be in patch 1.1. Everyone thought Zhongli, the Geo deep-voiced Archon, was going to be the pinnacle of an unkillable juggernaut. The Zhongli trailer was legendary, the best trailer of all time, leading everyone to think he was going to be the best character of all time. Not only would he deal a ton of damage, but he would be a tank among tanks, immovable and dangerous. He was going to be an unstoppable juggernaut DPS tank who you would never want to switch off because he was so cool. Turns out, he was an off-field support whom you barely used. A shield bot, elemental skill, burst, swap. If you had him on the field for any more than 1 second, you would lose DPS. Incredibly disappointing. He was later buffed along with the entirety of Geo, the only buff to ever happen in Genshin's history, which goes to show just how high expectations were and how disappointed people became. And then there's Kokomi, 40,000 HP, 30,000 AoE damage every 3.5 seconds, Hydro the best supporting element in the game, enabling Vaporize, Electrocharge, and Freeze, the 3 best reactions, some resistance interruption, 8,000 HP restored per second. She has become a complete subversion of expectations. Her unkillable nature is exactly what we wanted in Zhongli, while also dealing a lot of damage. All of a sudden, A character who does not require crit rate or crit damage while casually having 40,000 HP is competing in DPS with some of your decently built main DPS characters. You might think it's unfair to compare Kokomi to main DPS characters because Kokomi is not a main DPS. She's a support, and thus they do not compete for the same role. I found this to be the biggest misconception around Kokomi. There is actually no part of Kokomi that supports. She has no supportive capabilities. By nature, people assume that if you can heal, you're a support. This is not true. Hu Tao can heal. Does that make Hu Tao a support? Kokomi has no passive, ability, or constellation that buffs any other character than herself. Hu Tao increases other characters' crit rate. Yoimiya increases other characters' attack. Ganyu gives other characters 20% cryo damage bonus. Kokomi has no innate way to increase the damage of another character. Everything about her buffs her own damage. She scales with Hydro damage bonus. Her burst gives her normal damage bonus based on her max HP. Healing bonus gives her additional damage bonus on her normal attacks. Healing does not make a character a support. However, this does not mean you can't play her like a support with Thrilling Tales and Tenacity. She doesn't have to take up the role of a damage dealer. She prefers field time but doesn't require it. She's primarily an on-field driver who heals and supports your team by killing your enemies for you. But playing her as an elemental applicator with all-field AoE Hydro application is incredibly effective as well. She doesn't have to compete with Yoimiya. You can actually play them together very reliably. I believe Kokomi is experiencing a play rate resurgence not because Ocean-Hued Clam is an OP set for healers, even though it is, but rather because it forced those who have her to go back and reevaluate what she brings to the table besides damage. It just so happens that with Ocean-Hued Clam, she out-DPSs decently built DPS characters since she doesn't rely on good artifacts. More and more players who owned her and benched her day one realized, wait a minute, maybe she's alright, as a friend of mine most aptly put it. Kokomi's ever-increasing play rates isn't going to slow down now. MiHoYo keeps adding pyro enemies and more dangerous enemies into the Abyss, an unkillable juggernaut DPS tank that relies on trash artifacts, that has no problem supporting your team by killing them for you, is only going to increase in popularity. Maybe her flawless strategy isn't so flawed after all.